Hey YouTube, Jimbe here. So today I have an extremely controversial topic that I want to talk about. And what is this, you might ask? Well, you might guess from the title. And before you click that dislike button, and I know it's going to happen, people are just going to read the title, click dislike, and then click off the video. Hear me out. But I actually do believe that Crocodile was in the past a woman. Now, as you guys know, especially those who have seen a lot of my videos, for the most part, I'm a very grounded and reasonable person. I don't believe things just to believe them just because they're ideas. I need reasons to believe them. And then I think I've built up a decent amount of credibility about One Piece and about my views on One Piece. So I feel comfortable talking about this and having my subscribers listen to the argument before they come to a conclusion about it and about my beliefs on it. But in this case, I do think that there is actually some significant information which paints Crocodile as potentially in the past being a woman. And so this is what I want to discuss with you, so please watch the entire video. So for those who aren't aware, the reason why it's a speculation that Crocodile was in the past a woman, despite clearly being a man, and all the scenes that we see him, is that in the Impel Down arc, the interaction between Ivankov and Crocodile, Ivankov told us that she knew a secret that Crocodile had, and this secret highly embarrassed Crocodile. And then using this was able to, in a way, blackmail Crocodile to help the Straw Hats. But that's beside the point here. And then given Ivankov's ability using his hormone devil fruit to be able to change the genders of people, and if we put two and two together, this speculation actually becomes a legit thing. But just this alone isn't really enough to convince me that it's true, only that it's a possibility. But what some fans don't know is that the speculation that Crocodile could perhaps have been a woman in the past actually predates this manga scene in which we see that Ivankov has some sort of secret that Crocodile is embarrassed about. People were speculating this before this scene. And you might ask, why did they do that? Well, it actually comes from a theory about a possible inspiration for the shichibukai. There's a game called Romancing Saga 2, which was actually a game that was released in 1992, and a game that potentially Oda played before his time as a mangaka. And so what's interesting about this game is that some of the characters in this game, the playable characters, are actually, there's a reason to suggest that they are the inspiration for the 7 original shichibukai. And so the game itself doesn't have any resemblance to One Piece at all, but the description of the 7 heroes is highly reminiscent of many of the shichibukai. There's only slight differences, and these differences can be explained potentially as Oda changing some of the details when he got around to actually designing the shichibukai and basically selecting, perhaps preferences for how he wanted to design them. But there are at least 5 of these 7 characters, these 7 heroes from this game, that are really clearly similar to 5 of the 7 shichibukai. And then there's 2 that are a little bit off, one of those being Crocodile. And I'm going to give you this evidence now, and so let me know what you think, but I definitely think that this game inspired Oda. Alright guys, so I'm going to be awarding points to those who can actually come up with the shichibukai before or immediately after I read the description of the character from the game. Alright, so first one's first. The only female of the 7, she controls all the men in the jungle villages. Her temptation skill charms all male party members. Who is this? Well, Boa Hancock. Next, a swordsman who always keeps his word, very powerful with a strict code of honor. And Mihawk, a male octopus-human hybrid that controls various minions in the ocean. Alright, Jimbe. Next, a puppeteer demon with an elderly appearance, complete with an innumerable amount of slaves. His special technique, Marionette, allows him to manipulate all party members. Doflamingo. A floating demon with a scarf covering his face, can steal life energy or souls using life steal or soul steal. Gecko Moria. Now I know that there are differences between these characters and the shichibukai based on their descriptions, and that's just to be expected because Oda isn't going to copy every single facet of these 7 heroes, just use them as a template to help inspire him for the 7 shichibukai. I think it's too much of a coincidence that there's 7 heroes, 7 shichibukai, and 5 of them are very nearly the same as 5 of the shichibukai. There are 2 examples which are not as close, but still that is to be expected given that Oda had probably other ideas that he wanted to use for the shichibukai, and that he, the 2 here just didn't provide the kind of character that he wanted to use in One Piece. But yeah, so there's 2 characters, 2 shichibukai that were not accurately portrayed from this game. That would be Kuma and Crocodile. I'm going to skip over Kuma because it's not important, but let's look at the character based on these that must have been Crocodile. The other one was clearly had to have been Kuma, but instead of being a cyborg, he was like some sort of huge creature, but that's beside the point. Let's read Crocodile's description. A hero with both angelic and butterfly-like characteristics, the incredibly feminine-looking character is actually male, and he enslaves this particular race to do his bidding. Now, I think we can already see the similarities between this character's history and then Crocodile being the person to try and take over the kingdom of Alabasta, although they're not exactly the same. He didn't try to enslave a race, but still there's similarities there. But the key here is that this is a man who looks like a female. And then to couple this again with the actual manga evidence that Ivankov has a secret over Crocodile that is highly embarrassing to Crocodile, Ivankov being a master of hormones who can change people's gender, this just became something that not only is it possible, I actually believe, given that I think that the evidence that this game has inspired the shichibukai is way too close to be a coincidence. And then, if only to fuel the speculation that in the past Crocodile was a female, we actually get an SBS where Oda draws Crocodile as a child, which would obviously had to have been before any sort of gender change, and his gender is really ambiguous in this image, in my opinion. And so guys, it's for these reasons that I have this crazy idea that I actually believe is true, that Crocodile was in the past a woman. Now, do I think that this will have any relevance to the plot whatsoever? No, I absolutely do not think that. Crocodile had a history where, if this is true, he was a woman but didn't want to be a woman. He wanted to be a man. And so with that being said, it explains why he seems so clearly a man, because even as a woman, he was probably clearly, both in character and personality, a man. And so, is this going to have any sort of effect on the story? No. It's just an interesting fact, perhaps, about Crocodile's past. And was used only as a plot point for Ivankov to blackmail him to help the Straw Hats in a way. That's it. That's the only relevance that this has, but as a fun fact, it's just really, really crazy, and I think really awesome. But is this fact? Absolutely not. This could totally be wrong, and I'm okay with it either way. But I see so much hate for this theory, like it's tossed in that bin of just the most rubbish theories that have ever existed. And I don't think that this theory is worth that kind of hate. I think there's actual reason to believe that, given the evidence that I just provided to you guys. So at the very least, I'm using this video to help defend this theory, honestly, and those who believe it. As they're not just crackpot theorists who think this, that actual reasonable One Piece theorists can also believe this if presented with all the relevant information. But yeah guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you absolutely hated this video and you want me to quit YouTube, or you actually liked it and found it informative. Obviously, I'm not the first one to talk about that, that's pretty clear, but if I didn't make that clear to you, then I'm saying it now. This is a extremely old theory. Let me know what you think, and add your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you like the video. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed if you like what I'm doing on YouTube. And as always, dudes, have a wonderful day.